intention to hurt you, and yours was not to cry, bet. So where do we go from here? It's a life without you that I feel. How does one begin to let go of someone so dear? When I look outside, it's raining. The sun has given up.
I'm here at the Fox Inn with the wonderful Mick Morris, bit of a local legend. Mick, I've just witnessed you play a jazz gig with
the Jazz Refugees.
Jazz Refugees. Great sound. It's so nice to hear that kind of music. Now, Mick, I hope you don't mind me saying, but you're a bit of a legend in Dover. I mean, growing up as a small boy, you were famous even then. And when did you start playing?
Started playing. I guess I was about 7, and played the violin a bit at school, and not terribly well, and it really didn't do much for me. So I swapped instruments, when I was about 11 years old. Had some piano lessons and tried piano for a couple of years or so. And sadly that really didn't do it either. And it wasn't until I was 12 and a half, that somebody, I think my grandfather, gave me a banjo and a ukulele. And the following year I got hold of an acoustic guitar. And that made all the difference. It's just a question of finding what you're meant to play.
Sure.
I guess I wasn't meant to play the other two things.
To put you in context as well. So can I be cheeky and ask you what year that was? What was being played when you were learning?
The first gig I did was at my dad's social club, Dover Engineering Works Social Club, in the summer of probably 1956.
1956.
Yeah, I think. Yes.
So the big artists at the time, who were you trying to be at that time, or who did you really enjoy listening to?
A lot. There's a lot of people there. The skiffle thing was big. Lonnie Donegan, Johnny Duncan, Chas McDevitt, and a few others. But the rock and roll thing was also quite a new thing as well. And so many great artists. Presley, Chuck Berry.
I mean, it's difficult.
So many.
It's difficult to interview you. Because,
Bill Haley.
Because you've got such a rich history, right?
Yes.
But, excuse me for skipping through it, right? But I'm going to try, because you were in the original Rolling Stones. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, but not until 1961. That was a little later. Yeah.
So what happened there? Because I understand there is a connection between the Rolling Stones that occurred here, and there is a link, perhaps even to the Rolling Stones that we know today.
There could be, yes. It's one of those. It's one of those bits of mythology that no one's ever really managed to unravel for certain, and most people are scared stiff of publishing anything just in case.
Sure.
In case it's wrong.
Mind you, it'd be great to be sued by the Rolling Stones, wouldn't
it? It would be good.
It would be bankrupted by anyone.
Yeah.
I think the Rolling Stones would be claim to fame.
Yeah. In a nutshell, we're really not 100% sure. Nobody can be 100% sure that there was a connection, but there are some quite likely things. The original Rolling Stones was started in 1956 by a guy a few years older than me that I was at school with, a guy called Kit Keane. And he started that band in the summer of 56. all local lads, you know, all Dover lads, most of them from the boys' grammar school. And they played under that name for several years, you know. And in 1961, I'd just left school, and Kit left Dover, and I was invited to join the band, you know, to replace him. And within about 18 months of that time, somewhere sort of in the middle of 62, early 63, we decided to change the name. We didn't change the name because of the emergence of the other band, you know, but I think we just felt we'd had the name for a long time. We actually didn't think it was that great a name. And we thought it was a bit old-fashioned and a kind of a bit, I don't know, a bit... Well, it wasn't very fashionable at that time. It didn't seem to us. And so we were going to change anyway. But then we heard of them. When we did hear of them, that's when we started to think, how did they get the name, you know? And that's when some of these theories began to kind of emerge. For example, one of our teachers at the boys' grammar school was a guy called Arthur Elliott. He was the PE teacher at the boys' grammar school. I can see people smiling. Arthur's still around. He's still around now. A decent enough guy. But Arthur knew about the band. I mean, he knew that the boys, you know, had a band, and he knew what it was called. And I didn't know then, but I found out later that Joe Jagger, who was Mick Jagger's father, was also a PE teacher and did exactly the same job at Dartford Grammar School. But when I found out that Joe and Arthur were very good mates, that they actually were very good friends, then I did start to think, well, maybe, I don't know,
There is a physical
just
connection.
maybe.
There is
It is just possible that Arthur may have said to Joe, you know, there's some boys at my school got a band, and Joe may well have said, you know, well, funnily enough, my lad's trying to form a band, as you know, that kind of thing. You know, it may just have come out in
Well,
conversation.
I think that's enough proof to say that Mick Morris started the Rolling Stones, for me.
Well, no, I didn't start it.
I don't need to hear any more.
Song in your pickup truck on the morning train. Put me on the morning train. Ain't no need to explain. Put me on the morning train. Hey, Brother Ray, what did you mean by what you say?
So, Mick, I mean, you've played as a session musician as well. Well, you know, when the music scene was really sort of buzzing at that period, you played with quite a few famous names. Give us a smattering of some of the people you played with and the stages you played with.
In our early days, we, you know, like well, I guess it's no different from now. In our early days, we wanted to share the stage with big names. So it wasn't so much a question of kind of like being booked as session players, as just really wanting to get up on stage and play with some people that everybody had heard of, you know. So we used to kind of put ourselves forward, you know, push ourselves to. And in the 60s, you know, we played with a lot of the kind of, you know, I don't know, where do you start?
Well, I want you to be humble for a start. Let's just put this humility
We
away.
played alongside people like the Mersey Beats and the Searchers, and we didn't play with the Beatles, sadly. But you know, a lot of the '60s kind of Liverpool bands we played alongside, and I got a residency in Folkestone in about 1964-5, and the deal was that I had to provide a band for 6 nights a week, and at weekends, when they could afford to pay a bit more money out because people came out more and spent more money, we would be relegated to the role of being the support band, which was fine by me, you know. And that was great because during the week, you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we'd be playing on our own. But at weekends, they'd bring down people like Georgie Fame and Alan Price and, you know, Fleetwood Mac and Eric Clapton playing with John Mayall's band and Peter Green and Mick Taylor. And
Yeah.
Tina Turner,
Ike
and Tina Turner, and these kind of people but they would only play at weekends, and then when they came down, we would be the support band, and we did it other places as well. You know, there were a lot of places around then that don't exist now. You know, so we played with all the kind of people who were big names at that time. You know, people like Joe Brown and.
Oh, that's fantastic. We saw him the other night, didn't we?
We did. Joe is still a superb.
Yeah.
He's wonderful. Yeah,
definitely.
He's a legend.
Yeah, he is.
Joe's a legend.
You know, the problem is with interviewing someone like Mick Morris is he should have his own show. We should have an audience with Mick Morris. So I'm skating through a lot of the things I'd like to talk about. But I suppose one of the things that you're most noted for, certainly in this area, was the Merkwood album, which is, you know, it's famous. It still sells copies today. Talk a little bit about that band and what was going on at that period.
Yeah, Merkwood was early 70s rather than 60s. Things had moved on. Music had changed a bit. You know, the Beatles had pretty much come to an end, and the writing of nice melodic songs was
Pop songs.
Yeah, people who did that were having a bad time. You know, Jimi Hendrix had been and just about gone. Cream had been and just about gone. And we had people like Zeppelin and Deep Purple who weren't writing the same sort of songs at all. They were writing a kind of a rockier, bluesier, much harder hitting, a very, very different type of song. And I think that, you know, even though we weren't in that league, I think we were aware of the fact that we needed to change. We needed to update what we were doing, you know, and Merkwood was our answer to it. Our answer to that problem was to say, okay, well, we won't do any more Beach Boys for a while. We'll stop and start again, writing our own stuff, and it'll be harder. You know, it'll be kind of a bit more powerful, a bit more kind of personal. Yeah, I guess that's the way to put it. So in 1971, that's what we did. We sat down, Jack Castle and I wrote a whole load of songs, and you know, we had to find the people that could play them and sing them, so we had to advertise for and recruit a singer and a drummer and a bass player, you know, to complement what we were doing.
Sure. And
that's what happened, and we ended up with the original lineup of Merkwood complete by about June or July.
Who was in the lineup, Mick?
Well, Jack and I started it, so you got Jack Castle on guitar and vocals, and me doing the same. And our first drummer was a guy called Steve Smith, who was absolutely unbelievably good. Very young, about 16 and a half, not quite 17. An amazing drummer. Still to this day, one of the best I've ever heard. Incredible. A guy called Andy Broadbent on bass, who was, again, a very talented musician, but he didn't stay the course. Andy moved away, and I don't know whether really don't know what happened to him, but he was very good. And my very good friend Derek Bowley, who's still around now, still around Dover. Sadly doesn't sing anymore. Yeah. On lead vocals, he was a wonderful vocalist. Yeah, he had an unusual timbre, an unusual tonality, and a great range. Yeah. Very, very, very wide, huge range, vocal range. So with Jack and Derek and myself singing, we had some half-decent harmonies there, you know, and we had two kind of lead guitarists, which was a bit unusual. Never had a keyboard player at that stage. And the album was recorded simply for ourselves and friends. It was made in a very small quantity.
It's a very personal album.
Very personal, yeah.
But I remember as a young lad going to the Louis Armstrong and seeing in a band called Easy Action, where you were doing a lot of Fleetwood Mac stuff. So you were starting to, I think you were embracing each period of music and trying to give your answer to it in all of the bands that you were in. You've managed to remain current for quite a long time. So talk to me a little bit about Easy Action and the period there.
Yeah, Easy Action.
Great band, by the way.
Yeah,
Really enjoyed it.
Easy Action was, it was a good band. What had happened there, Merkwood had come to an end, and the members of Merkwood had sort of pretty much gone off to do their own things. And in my case, that was probably playing quite a lot of jazz. I worked for a while with the Barnacle Brothers, that's Bill's sons in a band, and the usual thing, lots of very good people.
Steve and Gary, right?
Yeah, Steve and Gary and Pete Barnacle on drums, and we did a few things and various other things, but it wasn't a very commercial thing, and if most musicians, if they were honest, would probably admit that they have one eye on the artistic content of what they're doing, and another eye on the ability to earn a living, And I guess, there's nothing very unusual in saying that. I guess that's probably true of most people. Easy Action wasn't formed by me. Easy Action was formed by Jack, who I'd played with in Merkwood, and the bass player from Merkwood, Dave Evans. They formed the band, and I originally wasn't part of it because they knew that I wasn't available. I was doing other things. They may well have thought I wouldn't want to do it, but for whatever reason, I wasn't part of it. And I didn't really know anything about it at all, but they became quite popular quite quickly, and they got a lot of gigs, a lot of bookings. And after just a very short time, after just a few months, their vocalist, a guy called Andy Schilling, very good singer. He didn't play an instrument, but he was a damn good singer. And Andy left the band, and they had all these gigs piled up, with no one to do them, and very short notice. And I had the phone call from Jack saying, "Help, can you come and do the gigs with us and whatever, and see whether you like it. If you like it, the job's yours." And I did like it. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was good. It was totally different from what I'd been doing. I'd been playing a lot of fusion stuff and jazz, and this was kind of straight down the middle, as you say, kind of almost like a Fleetwood Mac tribute band in a way. But it sounded good. It sounded good, and I had no problems with it. Yeah, it was all right.
Not easy to achieve either, Mick.
No, maybe not. We had some good people there.
Yeah, definitely.
Fred DeGrusa.
Great drummer.
Yeah.
Great drummer.
Since I come on home, where my body's been a mess, and I miss your ginger hair and the way you like to dress. I want you to come on over and stop making a fool out of me.
Probably not that. Let's name a couple of those notable bands from you. In chronology, we've talked about Merkwood. Just name some of the bands that you've been in.
Well, starting at the beginning, I had a little band at school, but that wasn't notable. But that was called Mick Morris and the Backroom Boys. And then I had a skiffle group called the Asteroids.
The Asteroids.
Yeah.
Too many jokes there, let's move on.
Hemorrhoids. Then the Rolling Stones, who changed their name to become the Playboys, which in turn became a band called Take Five, which was the end of the line as far as nice songs were concerned. That was the bit we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Merkwood was the start of something different, so they were next. During the 70s, after Merkwood finished, we had a very short-lived band called Sprinter, Didn't last too long. It was quite nice. We did a lot of Steely Dan. It was very Steely Dan,
Yeah,
but
good pedigree.
didn't last very long. Wasn't very commercial, I don't think. And I played with a very commercial outfit called Spectrum, who were very good. Spectrum were like a kind of a live disco. You know, that was quite the opposite. You know. And a jazz band called Whirligig.
I've heard Whirligig.
Yeah, we had a little bit of success with them. And then after Whirligig, probably Easy Action, you've just mentioned. And then a period of going back into sort of just doing sessions and things again for a few years. And then finally Icebreaker. I say finally because on a personal level, I've not been motivated to form another band since the demise of Icebreaker. And I've done a lot of things, but one of the things I haven't done is form another band. You know.
But that's an interesting segue, actually, because when I first saw you, you were playing, you know, what can only be described as sort of rock guitar. You were a lead guitarist, and you were making some very big sounds on some of the stages you were on. And you kind of transition now these days. You're playing more acoustic numbers, and you play your mandolin, and I've seen you play a variety of instruments that are more acoustic based. Was that a decision you took? You thought, right, I've done this. That's been done for me. I'm now going to move into a kind of different feel, a different way of playing. How did that happen to you?
Yeah, that you're right. That is a bit of a puzzle even to me. But I think what happened there was that after Icebreaker, I did lose a lot of interest. I became temporarily disenchanted with what I was doing, you know, with the difficulties of keeping a good band together, with the difficulties of putting something together which not only worked for us, but worked for the audiences and worked for more importantly, perhaps worked for the people that were paying us, you know.
Sure.
I started to think that was actually an almost impossible combination. You know, I started to feel that I couldn't achieve all three things. So for a little while I retreated from it and started to do more teaching and just occasional sessions and things, and I just thought I need some time away from the live music scene. So for a few years I did that, and I think what got me started again, I have to give some credit here to Sean Jones, of Fair Isle, because Sean played guitar and his wife played violin, and they played Irish music. And we got talking in the pub one day, and it sounded almost like a challenge. I'm sure he didn't mean it that way, but it kind of came across as a challenge. It came across as him saying to me, you know, you've done all these things, but I bet you couldn't play this this Irish jigs and stuff that we do, you know. And me kind of saying, well, perhaps I could.
I know you mean.
Yeah.
You like a challenge.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that kind of, and he gave me a banjo and said, I'll come back in a few weeks and see how far you got with it. It wasn't an ordinary banjo like the jazz banjo that I play. Irish banjos are smaller and they're tuned like violins. They don't have the same tuning and you don't play them the same way, and they're really quite different. So, and he was absolutely right. It was very difficult. It actually took quite a while. It took me quite a few weeks.
Well, I saw you playing.
And when I finally went out and did a gig with him playing it, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I actually thought, this is really good. This is really enjoyable. I think maybe because I'd not done it before, it was totally different. I learnt all these really peculiar kind of, and they are very odd musically. Some of them are very strange tunes compared with anything popular that you will have heard. You know, they're very odd. They don't conform. You know, to the kind of patterns that you're familiar with, you know.
So is it fair to say after Fair Isle, and I saw Fair Isle, I thought they were a great
Yeah,
little...
Fair Isle that got me back into playing in a kind of an acoustic way, you know, because then I thought, I'm quite enjoying this.
Yeah.
So I bought a mandolin and a bouzouki and I sort of started to think, actually, this is quite a good thing. And then, of course, I remembered, well, this is what I did when I started. All those years earlier, that's exactly what I was doing when I first started playing, you know.
So a bit of a return home.
Yeah, kind of. The acoustic stuff was going home a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And then is it fair to say that after Farewell that you met with Colin Hinds?
Yep.
Got into Hands On.
Yes. I was still playing with Farewell, and Colin was still with China Crisis, and we met, and I don't know. It was one of those peculiar things. We kind of quite enjoyed each other's company. It was one of those odd things.
Great duo.
It was strange.
I do love. I'm a personal fan of that duo in particular, because it was the song selections, the way you guys behave on stage, the fun you're having actually comes across to the audience.
Yeah,
and those gigs are special, I think.
That for me anyway. I don't know what Colin would say, but for me that was a kind of stroke of luck, because we didn't know each other, and we met at the home of a mutual friend, and we sort of kind of sat down and just played a few things together, and I probably thought that would be the last I would see of him, and he probably thought the same about me, but I can't remember quite how it happened, but I think, as he was going out, the door, Colin said something along the lines of, we should do that again, or something like that, do you fancy doing some gigs or whatever, and so it kind of started from there. It was just luck, absolute luck.
Can't please everyone, so you gotta please yourself. People came from miles around, everyone was there. Yoko brought a walrus, there was magic in the air. And over in the corner, much to my surprise.
Yeah, so you're still writing, you're still creating.
Yeah, still writing a lot, but
and you're working on a new album now, I understand.
Yeah.
When can we hear that? When's that coming in?
That's a collaborative effort with Jack Castle. That'll be out in about 3 months' time.
Okay. So I think the answer to all of this is forget what's going on outside and just produce what you want to produce. Maybe that's the answer to it. And I understand you're writing your autobiography.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Have a guess.
Look, Mick Morris, I'm a big fan of yours. Mick's been around for, he is Dover music as far as I'm concerned. He knows everybody, he's played with everybody. It's a real pleasure for me to be able to do this interview with you, Mick. And I wish you every success as you continue on this career of yours. And I'd just like to welcome you to the Mick Morris Experience. Please check him out. He's playing at the Dover Music Festival. He's a very good friend of mine. Thanks for talking to me.
Thank you.
From a land with no borders, she was carried by an ocean to the land of the great divide. Stranded by the waters, the homeland watched her disappear with the road.